I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Southwest Magazine. In 2026, transgender rights remain at a critical crossroads. In the United States, new federal policies have barred transgender people from serving openly in the military, forcing some active duty members out while legal challenges continue to move through the courts. At the state level, restrictions on gender-affirming care, public participation, and everyday protections persist, even as reports of anti-trans violence continue to rise. In Canada, progress has been uneven. While federal protections have expanded, Alberta has introduced new limits affecting schools, sports, and access to gender-affirming care for youth, highlighting a widening divide over trans rights. Joining me once again is Vivian Myers-Jones, a dedicated advocate for LGBTQ+ rights on both sides of the Canada-U.S. border. A dual citizen and American military veteran, Vivian brings lived experience to these conversations, from navigating gender-affirming care through the U.S. Veterans Affairs system to advocating for inclusion and dignity here in New Brunswick. Through her work with St. John Pride and her ongoing human rights advocacy, Vivian continues to challenge policies that exclude and to push for a future grounded in equity, safety, and respect for all. Thank you, Vivian, so much for taking the time to once again sit down with me on this couch and, like I said, have these important conversations that we need to keep having as we watch around the world right now as a lot of human rights are eroding. How does it feel from the last time you were here, really in late 2025 to 2026? I know you come fresh from actually crossing over the border today and back into Canada.
I did, and I think it's important to kind of share where my mindset went, because the last time we spoke was right when NSPM 7 was released, and that's actually still on paper right now. And you know, at the time reading that, thinking that I was going to be immediately detained going over, that was the fear I had, and that's what the fear a lot of us had, and that fear is very much still in place and still possible. Something over the course of that just told me, it's like I can't stay back here. I have to get over there and be visible again, and so I'm continuing to do that, and so far it's been good. There is a couple of layers of privilege in this that I know I have, because when I've crossed over from St. Stephen into Calais, the Customs and Border Patrol on the U.S. side, it's a lot of the same agents that have been there for years that know me and know, you know, that I do this on a regular basis. So there's been a more personal level of trust there that I have. I also know as and this is part of the reality, is like, while I'm a visibly trans person, there is some white privilege in this as well, where I won't be I will be transphobically profiled, but I won't have the risk of being racially profiled as much. And and it's been, what's been hard for the trans community, for those who are, those in the trans community who are BIPOC, it's been even harder, and this is something we've really got to be really cognizant of in navigating all of this. But whatever flexibility I have, I kind of came to terms that, yes, I'm going to keep on using it, and I'm going to start being visible over there again.
How hard does that feel, though, to know that just being yourself has to feel sometimes brave?
I wish it didn't have to be. All of us being our authentic selves, it's an amazing thing. We should have that space and that peace to be able to do this without any sort of fear of backlash or any fear of being attacked or being harmed. We shouldn't be feeling that. We should be able to be ourselves and do it with peace and grace and ease, and not have another human threaten us over that.
We're filming this at a really interesting time. Interesting, maybe not the right word, but it is interesting nonetheless, no matter how confusing it gets. in the wake of Renee Good's death in Minneapolis by ICE agents. I know it's still under investigation. She was nevertheless a member of the LGBTQ plus community, which has eyes on this situation. For it's multi-layered, multi-reasons to pay attention. But I mean, right now, why I point this out is because we are, whatever the answers will be in this investigation, there are different narratives coming out about the same videos that we've all seen, very different narratives, to just show how easily different voices of authority can come out with statements on what is the truth before there's even been an investigation, to show us what state in the world we are at right now. And so I must imagine, as being a member of the LGBTQ plus community, how hard that can be when you feel like your life and your representation can sometimes come from a voice of authority, to be told in a way that that isn't fair, isn't true.
Well, and it was also before Renee Good. It was when Keith Porter was murdered New Year's Eve, also by an off-duty ICE agent. And in the year of 2025, there was, I believe, about 32 people who were murdered by ICE that never got the visibility that it did, that Renee Good's murder did. And it's for us in the 2S LGBTQI plus community, it's that we're being targeted. Those who are BIPOC have been facing this onslaught well ahead of what happened with Renee Good. I'm not trying to take away anything from what happened with Renee Good. This was just that there was those before her who were murdered as well. But the fact that there has to be back and forth discourse over what happened in that video, it was very straightforward. I mean, this was murder. This was absolute murder. Jonathan Ross life was not threatened at that point. If somebody wants to unpack that, was he in a state of post-traumatic stress disorder, as somebody who has PTSD, that because they mentioned about he was nearly killed by a car, I think it was like 11 months earlier. There was some statement like that. That doesn't excuse anything right there.
Maybe he should be in that role if these are symptoms you have from post-traumatic stress.
Right, and the role itself is horrendous anyway. It's sort of like that I should not be existing as they are. I mean, right there. But when you look at the video, it was very clear that this was not fear for his life. This was rage on his part, that he couldn't subjugate this individual, and he killed her as a result. I mean, that's the way I see it. That's the way the video looks. He needs to be apprehended. He needs to be arrested, and he needs to face he should be given due process, and he needs to face trial for this. And yeah. I
think it was, hearing people like Kristi Noem, for instance, the Vice President J.D. Vance as well, speak out with this before an investigation's even been had, with determinants such as domestic terrorist was one label given to Renee Good. And I think when you consider that coming from voices that should be voices of authority in a country, that has an effect on the mindset of people that might believe that, right? And I wonder what that does to especially members of the LGBTQ plus community, when a label like that in the wake of a person's death can be so easily given without an investigation even having been done, despite us all having seen the videos and interpreted them the way that we have interpreted them. What does that do when you hear voices like Kristi Noem, the Vice President of the United States as well, the President as well, take an immediate stance and knowingly say what they think has happened?
It's an absolute propaganda push, because when they put out NSPM 7, when they're trying to throw the domestic terrorist label and try to make it stick as much as they can. And the most disgusting thing was some of the rhetoric she was using when she was talking about that was actually the exact same rhetoric that the Nazis used, where it was like that, you kill one of us, we're going to kill all of you, which is what happened in a village. I believe it was in Austria. It was in Austria. I'm drawing a blank, but one of the SS officers was killed as you know, where the person acted in self-defense, and they just went and razed the whole village as a result. And so for them to say these sorts of things, it is absolutely reprehensible that this is coming from anybody who's a public servant in the United States. But with tyranny and with fascism, this tracks. This is they're going right by their playbook on this, and it's awful.
As a person who crosses both sides of the border and spends time in Canada, the United States, are you seeing that sentiment from the? What is your perspective on how both countries are seeing each other's views right now? Is there crossover? Is there seemingly a push away?
The people I speak with, and I also am a little careful about who, you know, like the 2S LGBTQI plus community in Maine is amazing, and nobody would give any value to anything that the Trump administration does, or what those who are still MAGA devotees would do. It's what I've kind of observed from a little bit of a distance is that you had a few, you know, and I'll use Calisthenics as an example because there's a few establishments there where they were very proudly waving their Trump and Vance flags everywhere. I've noticed them kind of discreetly vanishing off their yards a little more each time. So I don't know if it's that they. You would hope that they were having like a real change of conscience over that, or just because they don't want to deal with the backlash themselves. I don't know we don't know what's going on in their heads. But you are starting to see some regret and I think how people have voted. Then you have some of those individuals who are just going to double down no matter what.
This sort of change of heart that you're seeing, what level do you think? I mean, there's people that will say, oh, it's also the economy, right? It's not doing that well. Inflation's terrible, and he hasn't done the job he said he would do with the economy. He's starting wars, and he said he wouldn't start wars. But also, it's the erosion of human rights. It's a number of things, like you say. What do you think are the things that are weighing the most on people that may have been supporters of this administration just months ago and are now seeing maybe it's not exactly as they thought a year ago?
Human rights should be the thing everybody should have been thinking about first and foremost, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't. It took, you know, like the erosion of human rights of those who were marginalized and those who were vulnerable. And a lot of people, it didn't cross their radar that this was such a catastrophe, and that it finally, and what's taken some people to kind of notice is things like the economy. And you know, if we want to talk about those in Congress, and I'll you know, in particular Republicans, where they're now souring on Trump, it took him threatening the chair of the Federal Reserve to finally say, like, oh, this has gone too far. And you kind of think to yourself, like, so the fact that people were being abducted off the streets, that was not an issue to you, and this is, like, really, where are your moral priorities in all of this? And it's kind of shown, like, just where, you know, just how I don't know if corrupt's the right word, but just that level of just lack of conscientiousness, lack of compassion that people have. That's all starting to become exposed now.
You know, when we look back on World War II, we always want to think retrospectively, why did it take so long for North America to get involved, right? And sometimes when you see a group is marginalized, that impetus to act for some people just isn't there. They might not know a trans person. So therefore, well, why do I have to get involved at this level, right? We see that it comes for multiple levels of human rights over time, but I think that the attack on the trans community was one that some people felt they could ignore, just because whether they thought they knew a trans person or not. I'm very proud to be a part of a media outlet where, because if anyone follows CHCO, you know many members of the LGBTQ plus community, and that's very special to me and very special to, I think, our community. But I appreciate having you as a guest frequently, because a lot of times in these moments, it's hard to speak out if you feel that you are under attack. It's hard for you as someone who crosses the border regularly to know, I'm going on a TV show regularly to talk about exactly this, to talk about my rights eroding in a country that I'm from. And as a dual citizen now, I feel safer on the Canadian side. That takes a lot of bravery, and I hate that this is a moment that you have to live through because of doing these shows, we've become friends. But I'm so grateful for your openness and your courage to be this open and to share everything that you've gone through with everyone at home. So for part of the reason I want people at home to understand this is that I know how you connect with the people that hear your story and hear everything you have to say and hear from your perspective how all these things that the rest of us go home at night and turn on the news and maybe we're shocked, maybe we're horrified. But if you aren't that community that's being attacked, you don't fully understand the depth and the seriousness about what some of these things mean. So I appreciate everything you do in coming on here and sharing, and you change lives and I hear about it. And sometimes fine, we might have to see the odd angry comment, but I know that you have to see that too, and that can have quite a serious effect on your life, but you've still been willing to do this time and time again.
I have to, because I mean, this, you know, we as humans are all interconnected, and when somebody else maybe in some other part of the world, you know, but if somebody else's rights are being hurt, we're at risk too. I mean, it's, you know, what's happened, you know, the genocide that's in, you know, the genocide in Palestine, that does affect us too. And you know, what's happened to you know, people who are visible minorities, I mean, that affects us too. And I think this, if anything, that, you know, like, that you know, Renee Good being murdered kind of showed that too. It's just like, you know, that none of us, if one of us are going to be persecuted, we will all be persecuted. I mean, we really are all in this together, and we will, you know, this you know, all these actions affects us all. This whole idea of like this not in my backyard approach, or that it's not happening to me in my own scope, therefore it's never going to happen to me. Well, that's unfortunately also kind of like a lot of the steps that led to the U.S. being attacked, where they were kind of like, you know, and that's what it finally, you know, it kind of shows like that's, you know, that's what it finally took for them to get involved in the Second World War, where it's like, but there was so much atrocities happening before that. Like now it's point, like we need to speak out for those who are not in our neighborhoods. I mean, because that's because it's the right thing to do. And it's that involves all of us.
It really does, and I think too this year, I think one of the things that I took notice of, you know, on Inauguration Day last January, pretty much a year from when we're filming this now, we saw a lot of these tech giants as well, the Mark Zuckerbergs, Jeff Bezos, stepping in line and standing behind and willing to change how they do business to suit the current administration. And so when you see business people being flexible with their own values based on what's better for business, that's a scary time for human rights too.
It's scary, and you know, I'll even expand that over to the entertainment industry, where you've had people who had spoke up as being inclusive entertainers, as safe entertainers, and all of a sudden turn as they did. I mean, we saw that with you know, I'm going to mention out some celebrities here, but like Gwen Stefani was one who did that. Nicki Minaj did that, and you know, there's been a few others, like, you know, just even recently where it's sort of that they are just concerned with their bottom line, and that's it. That's the only thing that's on their radar in terms of what how we as humans are affected. And that kind of goes to this case of like, that's, you know, the fact that that's what their priorities are versus actually, like, you know, trying to help other humans and in human rights. Disappointing is not even the right word. I mean, it's just like so devastatingly gross that's what their concern is in this.
You know? I think it's in these moments too where you think of those quotes. It's like Martin Luther King. In these moments, we don't remember. You know, you remember the silence of your friends, and it's to remember that silence is a problem too, right? When we have a moment to stand up for what's right, when we choose not to, that's a choice as well. And I think that's why these conversations, you and I need to keep having them as often as you're willing to come by, because I think just by having them and for people getting to know you more and more, I think this is our third interview within the last 8 months alone. The reason they're so important is because people get to know you, whether they know you in person or not. Just seeing you on the screen and hearing your life experience and your point of view over and over again gives them an understanding of you. It humanizes you, humanizes the trans community to someone who might not know a trans person, or might think they don't know a trans person, and really gives them an idea of what it's like. I know the thing I love about Maine and New Brunswick is at least people seem to be willing to, they're also used to being overlooked in a way. So sometimes they are willing to just make up their own mind or have their mind be changed just by being open-minded.
Well, that's a hope in this, and that number one, know that like just me as a woman who is trans, that I'm not a threat, that I've got good things to bring to.
And you're so much fun. Let me just say that. I feel like not a threat doesn't even cross my mind from getting to know you. Is that it's fun to have these serious conversations with you, but just what an awesome, lovely person you are.
Thanks.
When the cameras stop rolling too, it's been great for me to get to have you as a friend now.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. And moments of joy really matter in this too. I mean, because like that joy is like the most, one of the most powerful acts of protest you can do in this, because part of what this pogrom against us as people are is that they want to demoralize us. They want to make us miserable, and because we're number one, more easily subjugated, and number two, they hope not getting a trigger warning, but that we do what they were going to do to us anyway, kind of like in that sort of way. So it's like in the course of all this, I do have my moments of fun and my moments of euphoria, and we need that as people. Like that's our way of saying like we have a right to be happy, and guess what? What you're trying to do isn't working. We're still here. So
I hear there are some moments of joy coming up. Maybe Drag Awards in February? Okay, tell me what's on the horizon.
So Drag Awards, yes. That's February 7th, the New Brunswick Drag Awards, and it's Dahlia Dior, who's an amazing performer and part of the drag community here in New Brunswick, is hosting it. So there's going to be there's actually been a big voting campaign for multiple categories for people in the performance, and that's the voting still going on right now too. And so they're going to announce the winners at that. They're going to be doing there's going to be performances there. They're going to have photo opportunities. I think there's going to be like a red carpet and that sort of thing. So it's going to be really amazing. Friday, January 23rd. My good friend DJ Ani Mali, he works he's out of St. John. He and I we wanted to do like kind of like initially a kind of like a throwback rave event from bringing a bunch of underground music from like 1990, 1991, and in the course of that, some of our some amazing people who are in the rave EDM community had a family emergency, and we've now turned that into a fundraiser for them, and that's going to be January 23rd at Monarch. It's called Sign Rave, and we're going to basically it's by donation. You come in, just whatever you want to donate to come in, and just to help them out. The next big thing I've got after that too is I'm doing a third contact show. That's going to be March 28th.
Okay.
We've got 6 performers coming from Maine for this one. 5 of them from Portland. And we've also got one of the first performers from, a performer I know from Nova Scotia. It's going to be his first time performing in New Brunswick as well. So it's we're really, really excited about that. That's we haven't gotten the media blast out for that yet.
Okay.
We're probably going to have that out soon.
But March 28th?
Yeah, it's March 28th. That's also at Monarch as well in Fredericton.
Nice.
And those shows have really been really important because, as I've said before, the community, the 2S LGBTQI+ community here and in Maine, we are all the same community, and So to be able to have folks from Maine to be able to come over here and people to see just how amazing they are, that's been just something that's been really wonderful to be able to do and to be able to be a part of. And these are also they're just great people. I've had the pleasure of getting to know them. When I was in Portland, I was in for their Pride Parade, and then also met some of them back in May when I spoke at the May Day demonstration in Portland. They're really wonderful folks. I'm just really excited that they're coming.
Well, I have to say that in this moment of history that we're living through, as challenging as it may be, the greatest hope that I've experienced in the past year has come from the LGBTQ plus community and the allies, whether it was lights across the border, where this time last year we shone our flashlights at each other just to show solidarity and that we are here to stand for each other. And then Charlotte County Pride invited Maine's Pride group, or Callis's Pride over.
Down East Rainbow Alliance.
Down East Rainbow Alliance, and
I remember that.
they came over for the day, but also the parade marched all the way to the border and turned around again.
Oh, they're wonderful. For Down East Rainbow Alliance,
special.
I've communicated with them quite. They're absolutely amazing people.
I know you and I've talked a lot about your time at your being a U.S. military vet. And I've always thanked you for your service to your country, but I thank you for your service again to people, to humanity, for using your voice to stand up for what's right, because what that does is make a better future for other people. And this is a critical moment in time. And as a journalist, I know I'm supposed to, mostly be neutral and quiet, but there are some things that are, sorry, not quiet, but neutral, but there's some things that demand voices. And when we see human rights eroding, we need to have these conversations to make sure that we at least do what's right and use our voices for what they should be used for in these times, to make sure that your rights and my rights stay in place, or we don't lose more than we've already lost at this time, and we fight for the reinstatement of those rights. So I appreciate you always, Vivian. I refuse to say goodbye because I would love to have you back again very soon. This couch is always welcome for you to come sit down on and have these conversations. So thank you much for coming in today. Any final words you'd like to leave people with?
You said it. We need to speak about this. I mean, this is, and we need to not be quiet, and we need to. It is getting through a very scary time with us, and none of us are going to be safe in this. But it's one of these things that we've got to stand firm more than ever, and not back down. Yeah. It really is our future as a human species depends on us standing up against injustice and against tyranny and for human rights.
Thank you for what you stand for. Thank you for your words today and for your willingness to always come in. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much.
My guest today has been human rights advocate Vivian Myers-Jones. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.